He almost believed it would never work. Almost. He had talent, yes, but what is talent when no one sees you? When your ideas always come back with the same cold and impersonal response, it's not what we're looking for. 30 times. 30 closed doors. 30 different ways of saying you're no good. And each no was a needle piercing the same place. Courage, hope, the soul. Have you ever felt like nothing you do is good enough? You know that moment when you look around and all you see is silence. No response, no feedback, no validation. Just that emptiness that screams softly, telling you that maybe you weren't born for this, that maybe the world has already decided who deserves to be seen, and it's not you. He felt that too. He began to doubt what he wrote. After what I thought. After... Who was it? And you know what hurts the most? It's not the rejection. It's the silence after it. It's when no one asks if you're still trying. It's when it feels like you're fighting for a dream that no one else believes in, not even you. He saw himself as a failure. An ordinary man buried in bills, living in a job that didn't fulfill him, writing in secret as if he were hiding a flaw. And one day, with no more strength left, he gave up. He crumpled up what he had written, threw it in the trash, and decided to move on with his life. He decided that it was just another delusion of grandeur, that it wasn't for him. But one thing happened. Someone saw where he only saw trash. Someone believed when he no longer believed. And that's when everything started to change, not with applause, not with contract, but with a silent gesture, an invisible gesture which lit the spark again. And what was once tiredness became momentum. What was shame became a weapon. What was fear became strength. This story isn't just his, it's mine. It's yours. It's everyone's story who has ever felt like they were screaming in an empty room. Everyone who has ever thought about giving up, not because of a lack of talent, but because of too much rejection. This story is for anyone who has ever thought, maybe I wasn't cut out for this. If you've ever felt this, comment below. I know what it's like to feel invisible. Your comment isn't just a rant. It's a reminder to anyone who also needs to know that they're not alone. And stay with me until the end. Because this story is not about success. It's about decision. It's about the thing that no one sees, but changes everything. Leave your like now and subscribe to the channel. This will help this message reach more people who need to hear what you are listening to now. Here, every story is a spark. Every video is a safe space to remember who you are, even when the world tries to make you forget. If this story has already touched something inside you, imagine what comes at the end. Subscribe now and stay with us. He wrote in secret. He woke up before the sun. He waited for the house to go quiet. He sat alone at a makeshift table in the corner of his cramped room with a borrowed typewriter, balanced between overdue bills and despair. He wrote with fear, fear of wasting time, fear that all of this was just another escape from reality, fear of discovering that deep down he wasn't good enough. Each word typed on the keyboard was accompanied by a painful thought. No one will read this. But he continued, not for hope, but out of stubbornness, because sometimes being stubborn is the only way to keep breathing. He worked all day as an English teacher. Low pay, students who didn't listen, moldy walls, broken chalk, a crowded classroom. He would come home exhausted. His body begged for rest. His head screamed. And yet, after a simple dinner and the children were asleep, he would go back to the machine. I tried to write. Sometimes I could. Most days I just stared at the blank page like someone staring into a mirror. And what I saw wasn't pretty. It was failure. He was a man in his early 30s with too much talent to be ignored and not enough courage to continue believing. He was someone who had already sent dozens of texts to magazines and publishers and received in return the same repeated silence. Or worse, that cold, standardized note with a faceless signature saying, "Thanks, but it doesn't fit what we are looking for." He nailed each of these letters to the wall with a rusty nail. It was not to remember. It was to not forget. Not to forget. How much it hurt. Not to forget what they were saying, even without saying it in so many words. You are not good for this. With each new refusal, the wall gained another scar, and so does he. The electricity bill was late. The phone was cut off. The car was almost lost. The refrigerator was empty. He wrote by hand when the typewriter ribbon ran out, and he didn't have the money to buy a new one. I wrote on the students' test paper. I wrote during lunch breaks. I wrote in anger. I wrote with shame, ashamed of not being the man he promised to be for his family, of not being able to pay the bills, of putting hope in a childish dream, a dream that only he still pretended to believe in. One night the baby got sick. They had no car, no phone, no money for a taxi. He carried her in his arms all the way to the hospital. On the way back, he didn't cry. He just walked in silence, his feet wet from the rain, his shoulders hunched and his head down. And yet, that very night he tried to write. Not because I believed it would work, but because I didn't know who I was without it. And it was on one of those days that he finished the manuscript of Carrie. He read it all over again and he hated it. He thought it was weak, confusing, unfunny, a bad draft about teenagers and blood. He thought no one will be interested in this. He thought, I wasted my time. He thought, this is trash. And then, with the same calm as someone who gives up, he got up, walked to the trash can and threw everything away. He didn't say anything. He didn't complain. He didn't cry. He just turned off the light in his room and went to sleep, certain that something inside him had died there. She was the one who saw it. The next day, while he was working, she tidied the house. The repetitive routine of someone who takes care of everything and is often forgotten. She took out the trash as she always did, but this time something weighed differently. A crumpled wad of paper, dense, stained with coffee. Curious, she carefully unraveled it. Words written by hand, margins scribbled, paragraphs crossed out in anger. It was what he wrote at night, when he thought no one was watching. She saw it. She read it there, standing in the kitchen with the natural light shining in from the side. She read it slowly, and she cried in silence. She cried because it wasn't just a story. It was his pain. It was his cry. It was everything he thought was worthless, and that for her was gold. He kept the paper. He waited for him to come back. That night, she placed the manuscript on the kitchen table. When he came in, tired, she simply said, "Finish this." He didn't answer right away. He just looked, and in that look there was shame, a little anger, a little disbelief, but mainly tiredness. Tired of trying, tired of believing alone. And now suddenly there was someone else. A voice inside saying, "What if she's right?" He sat down. Not out of trust, but out of respect, out of love. And out of an almost invisible thread of hope that sentence ignited. The typewriter remained in the same place. On top of the crooked table. Next to it, the overdue electricity bill. On the other side, his son's notebook with scribbled drawings. He took a blank sheet of paper. He put it in the typewriter. He stopped. He didn't write yet. He stared, and then, in an almost childish gesture, he picked up a pen. In the corner of the sheet, he wrote something small. A note to yourself. It wasn't a catchy phrase. It wasn't a manifesto. It was just this: go to the end even if no one reads it. He folded the paper. He put it in the drawer, and he went back to the front of the machine. At the first stroke of the key, something stirred inside him. It was still fear, but now it was mixed with something new, a kind of anger turned into strength. He had been rejected so many times that writing now was almost an act of defiance, as if to say, "You don't want to? Okay, but I'm going to finish it anyway." Most people wait to be sure before they act. He had no certainty, no money, no publisher, no motivation, but he had that piece of paper with that phrase on it, and the look in the eyes of the woman who believed, even when he stopped believing. The decision happened there, in the dark. No applause, no audience, no promise of victory. The decision to continue, the decision to go all the way, even in the silence. And that changed everything. But nobody saw it. And that's why you need to stay here with us. Because most people only see the result. Here we show you the moment when everything really begins, the invisible, the real, the most human. If you are living in this blind spot where everything seems to stand still and nothing makes sense, sign up now. Don't wait for success to believe in yourself. Do as he does, decide now. In the dark, Here, each video reminds you of what still exists inside, and from now on you will see what happens when you don't give up. He finished. Carrie. With fear, with doubts, but it's over. Sent it to another publisher, without great expectations, without creating too much hope. He had already learned to protect himself. I had already memorized the taste of no, but this time, it was a yes. The letter arrived like the others, a plain envelope, a plain piece of paper. But the content was different. The proposal was there. They wanted to publish it. They wanted to carry forward what he had almost thrown away forever. When he read it, he didn't scream, he didn't jump, he just stood there reading it again and again, like someone who doesn't believe it, like someone who needs to be sure he's not daydreaming. The check came later, an advance payment of $2,500. After so long without money to pay for the phone, that amount seemed like a miracle, but it was only the beginning. Carrie was published. And then what no one expected happened. The book exploded. It sold over 1 million copies in its first year. People who had never heard of Stephen King were reading it, commenting on it, recommending it. The story of the rejected girl merging between bullying and power touched something deep inside people. It was fiction, but it was also a mirror. Critics began to pay attention. Bookstores began to feature him. Newspapers wrote reviews. And he, who had spent years in silence, was now heard everywhere. What was once a pile of letters denying his existence became contracts, invitations, opportunities. He left the dark, cramped room and ended up on the bestseller lists. From a debt-ridden professor to a published author. From an unknown to a publishing phenomenon, and it didn't stop there. Other books came one after the other: The Shining, The Dead Zone, Christine, It, Misery. Stories that scared but also freed. Because behind the fear, there was truth. Fear of being forgotten, fear of going crazy, fear of not belonging, fear of not being loved. Human fears, disguised as monsters. Hollywood knocked on the door. The adaptations came. First Carrie, after The Shining, Count on Me. A dream of freedom waiting for a miracle. His name became synonymous with suspense, synonymous with genius, synonymous with overcoming. Today, Stephen King has sold over 400 million books. He is one of the most widely read, most adapted, and most respected authors in the world. And all of this was born from a decision that no one saw coming. That leaf rescued from the trash. The phrase written in a corner. The choice to keep writing even without believing. The small, invisible, silent gesture became an avalanche of transformation. People applaud the author, but almost no one saw the broken man before the first applause, and that's why you're here. Because maybe you're in that moment too, where everything seems small, useless, invisible, but maybe what you carry even in the dark is just what the world needs. And if you leave now, you'll never know. How many times have you had an idea and left it behind? How many times have you started something and halfway through convinced yourself that it wasn't worth it? That it wasn't good enough, that no one would care? How many times have you thrown away your own dreams before giving the world a chance to do so? You're watching this story right now, and maybe you saw yourself in it. Maybe you don't write books. Maybe your life has nothing to do with typewriters or publishing. But the feeling, that's the same, isn't it? Because it's not about writing, it's about doubting yourself. It's about living in the hope of the moment when someone will tell you that you have value, that you deserve it, that you're good. But that moment almost never comes from outside. And when it does, it doesn't last. Because what truly changes your life is not applause. It's the silent decision to keep going. Have you ever felt invisible? Have you ever felt like everything you do seems too small? That while others are moving forward, you are stuck? Have you ever looked in the mirror and thought, I should be further away? I know so. And it's not just you. There are more people than you can imagine who carry the same shame, the same exhaustion, the same sense of helplessness that Stephen felt before he became who he is. People who go to bed every day wondering if there's still any point in trying. The truth is that for many people, the biggest fear is not failing. It's continuing to try and continuing to be ignored. But what if it's not the world that needs to see you first? What if it's you? What if your story is just waiting for an invisible choice to really begin? Think about it. When was the last time you finished something just because you wanted to, without needing validation, without guarantees, just because you felt you had to? Most of us live half lives, half a dream, half a decision, half a step. And we spend our lives waiting for the right moment, the perfect scenario, the answer that never comes. But what if today is the right time, even if it doesn't seem like it, even in the dark? This Stephen King story is about that, not about success, but about choice. A choice that no one saw coming, a choice that seemed to make no difference. But it did. It made all the difference, and now I want to invite you to think about your invisible choice. What is it? What is that thing you haven't finished yet? That idea you've put aside? That part of you that is still alive but quiet? Right here in the comments. You don't need to tell everything. Just say, it's still in here. Because sometimes, all we need is to admit that we're not dead, that the dream still breathes. Even if weak, you don't have to be ready. You just have to be willing. Your turnaround won't come with applause. It will come in silence, when no one is watching, when you decide again, when no one believes, maybe not even you. But the story begins there, at the point where almost everything ends. Comment below. What was that silent choice that no one saw, but that changed everything for you? It may be small, it may be recent, it may have hurt, but if it was real, it matters. And by sharing it, you might also spark a spark in someone watching right now, feeling alone in the dark. If this story touched something that was dormant inside you, leave a like, not only to strengthen the channel, but to show that stories like this still matter, that there are still people choosing to continue, even when no one is applauding. Want to be inspired by more real stories of people who were discredited, humiliated, discarded, and still turned the tables? Click on the video that appears here on the screen and continue this journey of transformation, because your turnaround can start here.